Welcome to Sports Talk on the Max. Hi again, everybody. Happy Friday to you and yours on this September 20th as we've hit lunchtime, and we appreciate you giving us a few moments of your time. We're here for an hour, and we're going to be talking high school sports, college sports, professional football, all this stuff plus more. All right, so we're going to try to cram it in, and we're going to get it started like we always do with talking high school football. Let's bring in our very own Doug Griffiths, our WYMR sports analyst. How you doing, my friend?
We're doing great. Tony, week number 5
Already.
For high school football. We're beyond the halfway mark, if you can believe it. So now teams, either they want to remain hot or get hot as they get ready for the postseason push. And we got some good ones again tonight, and we get to journey over to Stark County tonight and see Mr. McLaughlin and company and Knox Redskins host John Glenn Falcons.
Our pregame will be around 6:30 tonight, so join us live from Knox. All right, Doogie, let's run down our area teams and our games so we can talk about it.
Well, a team we had last week that took a tough loss to LaVille, the Bremen Lions, who are now 2-2 on this season. They traveled to Jimtown, and of course the Jimmies are coming off that 22-14 win at Glenn. So, it's one of the crossroads games, for the Lions. Which direction are they going to go? Obviously, they need a win. They're banged up. Ty Graverson didn't play last week. He's not going to play this week. And I think it's very uncertain, to say the least, what his what it looks like for him going forward with that knee injury. And so I know you've been impressed since you saw Jimtown in the summer, Tony, at a scrimmage against Plymouth. So it's going to be one of those games where Bremen just has to dig down deep and try to find a victory.
This Jimtown team can very easily be undefeated if it weren't for the fact that they had the first 2 games against 2 powerhouse teams. And I love their size. I love Jimtown's ability to get downfield. And Bremen's, hopefully it was a healthy week for them. I think they can play with this Jimtown team, but their defense is really going to have to make a stand at the line of scrimmage. I don't see the Lions. I can see the Lions being competitive throughout, but that line of scrimmage battle has got to be won by our good guys. And I think it's just really a physical matchup tonight. When isn't it when you're facing a Jimtown team anyways? But I think Silas Leidig still is showing good confidence in the pocket. He's learning how to adapt without Ty Graverson. And listen, don't dismiss that. When you have the connection that Leidig and Graverson have had for so many years, losing it suddenly becomes very tough for a quarterback to figure out what his other receivers do that he needs to place the ball over the left shoulder, over the right shoulder, or where that cut is that across the field that needs to be made for a pinpoint pass. I mean, there's a lot of feeling out that's got to take place here still, and because Graverson is kind of almost irreplaceable to a point.
Oh, yeah. And, I mean,
nothing against Jack Wilder.
We don't even talk about how valuable he is on the defensive side of the ball, too. I mean, to have him patrolling on defense and then all the things he does offensively. And, one of the positives, I thought Luke Kincaid stepped up. Their senior
he sure did.
Last week had 4 catches, 75 yards, and a touchdown. And then the Anderson kid keeps on rolling, had over 100 yards rushing and a score. But, you alluded to it, Tony. Offensively, you got to find more offense. You score 12 points, you're not going to win many high school football games.
At least not against the calibers of
right,
Jimtown,
exactly right.
Knoxes and such.
Yeah, so tall order for Bremen, like I said, undermanned. But, you get to this time of year and usually teams are dinged up in one shape or another. Then if we look, the other team we had in that game, of course, last week was LaVille. They've won their last 2 games, eked out, like we said, the 1-point victory over Bremen. And tonight they host Tippy Valley, who they'll come in with a chip on their shoulder after getting handled rather easily at Knox last week, 26 6-3. Valley's 3-1. As we said, the Lancers are 2-2. And boy, what a thrilling victory they had last week that we had on Max 98.3. A game-winning drive in the waning seconds. Senior quarterback Colin Zarnecki was tremendous. Threw for 112 yards, and the game-winning touchdown was really magnificent in that drive. I think he had 5 of his 10. I think he was 5 of 7 in that drive, and also had a big 11-yard pickup running the football. And the Switz kid was the guy who caught the game-winning touchdown. He had 5 catches for 48 yards, and then they had a lot of good defensive performances. Overall, that defense had 7 sacks in the game. John Neese was terrific. 12 tackles, fumble cause, fumble recovery. The Platts kid had 2 sacks. So Braden Foster also had a dozen stops. So you start to think that the Lancers might be finding their groove. You know, we talked about going into the season, they were going to have to fill some pretty important voids on both sides of the line of scrimmage. And now maybe they're slowly getting some of those answers. I mean, Bremen did a great job on Cody Allen. They just couldn't seal the deal by stopping him in that last drive.
Yeah, well, okay, let's start here with Tippy Valley. This is a team that started the season 3-0. 2 out of those 3 opponents have yet to win a game. And Rochester kind of exposed Tippy Valley a little bit where their weaknesses was, and Knox just simply got, not only did they expose the Valley weaknesses, they put the foot down and kept it going. And I kind of feel tonight, if Jeff Kaiser was looking at game film, he's going to understand the importance of getting off out of the gate early. When you take, again, the teams that Valley has faced, where their mental capacity is, because they expected to compete with Knox. Knox is just, it's a different level. Okay, I don't know how to explain it. Went to practice to watch them this week. They're getting better and better and better. Even though they're a 500 team, you know, they lost to North Judson, and that's after losing their first game to North Judson. One of the Stark County rivalries out of the gate. They rebounded and picked up a win, their first win. This is a Knox team that, if their defense shows up like it did against Tippy Valley, that was their best defensive performance, according to coaches, that they've seen in a little while. Because tonight, you know, when you look at LaVille and who they got to face as far as Tippy Valley is concerned, I couldn't agree with you more about how important of a win over Bremen at Bremen that was. You know, and I agree wholeheartedly, if LaVille can stay out of the injury box, they are going to get better and better and better each and every game. Tonight will be one of those games to kickstart that. I just like what, you know, you mentioned Neese, but at the same time, you know, you got Zarnecki, who is a playmaker, be a playmaker.
Yep.
And I think that does well for his confidence. You know, he leads the game-winning drive. You know what you're going to get out of Cody Allen. That's never a issue. Is the offensive line getting better? That is the determining factor on whether or not the Lancers continue this momentum in the win column. If that O-line can play I thought they played well against Bremen. Bremen's a solid team, and with a lot of offensive arsenal. LaVille held them, bent but didn't break. That, to me, is a confidence boost all week for practice. So I really think tonight LaVille gets the edge on Tippy Valley, and a lot of it has to do with momentum. You know, I mean, there's not a lot of things LaVille needs to be tweaking other than effort. And coaches can do nothing about effort. That's a player thing. And I hope they found out, because of their effort, they can beat teams just like Valley. It's not going to be easy, but they can beat them.
Yeah, it'll be real interesting to see if Valley can turn the page from the disappointing loss at Knox, and whether LaVille can keep building the confidence. 2-game winning streak. I know it's modest, but when you come off a road win against a rival, let's be real, they're close rivals. That's always great. One of the things I love, Tony, about that LaVille game, that last-minute drive, the game-winning drive, is how they got Cody Allen involved coming out of the backfield catching passes. Because everyone's going to load up the box and try to, as best they can, take him, basically make somebody else beat him. Well, then you started to see, at the game's most important part, they started getting the ball out in the flats to Allen, and then Zarnecki, like I said, made the big run. I think LaVille Nation would love to see a little bit more of that. Now, don't get me wrong, Coach Kaiser and company, they're not going to go away from the bread and butter pounding Cody Allen. But, if maybe the opponent's doing a really good job or a good job stopping the run, containing the run, maybe open it up a little more and get Allen out in space.
That doesn't happen unless that offensive line's given time.
Correct. Exactly right.
That doesn't happen unless that O-line is giving Zarnecki time, giving Allen enough time to get open. And one thing that is amazing to watch with Cody Allen is how well he can turn the corner.
Yep.
That dude can stop on a dime and give you 9 cents change.
Yeah, I just really like him in space. I mean,
oh, absolutely.
One-on-one, good luck. I'll take Cody Allen almost all the time. Probably the biggest surprise of last week, at least in my opinion, an undefeated Culver Academy team goes on the road and plays Fairfield. Fairfield had been, shut out by 2 of their opponents this year. One of them, by the way, was Jimtown. And they, notched their biggest win of the season, beating the Eagles 48-33. So now Culver Academy stays on the road, goes to Hammond Central, a 500 ball club. They're coming off a big shutout win at Indianapolis Shortridge. So, again, it's one of those crossroad type games. Does Culver Academy turn the page from that loss and get back in the win column, or is the Fairfield disappointment magnified tonight?
2 things that concern me. One, the bus trip to Hammond Central. Not that the Eagles are used to it, because they are. They're used to very long bus trips. But and then secondly, where's the mentality at? You combine a long bus trip to Fairfield last week. You're going to have another long bus trip to Hammond Central. You're coming off a loss last week. Where are you at between the ears? And I'm going to tell you, when this Eagles team is right between the ears, they put 36 up on South Bend Adams, beat Marion by 4, but put 28 on the board, and then put 47 against Knox. So this team is well within reach of getting this win. But where are they between the ears? In the Fairfield game, they did not get off to a good start. It was like they weren't juiced for the game. Very uncharacteristic of this Culver Academy squad. They're better than that. They know they're better than that. And in talking last Saturday to Coach Adurl, it was just one of the games you're going to just chalk up as forgetting and start fresh during film session. So I have no qualms about how this Eagles team is going to come out of the gate tonight. But combined with a long road trip, it makes it a little tougher because you get cozy for that hour trip, and so that's what I think the Eagles are going to be fighting tonight. If they just simply do their X and O's part, it's confusing for a defensive coordinator to try to stop an Eagles offense.
Well, no one's really stopped them. They had 33 points last week.
Yeah.
I mean, that should be more than enough to win.
That's the defense part.
Yep, exactly right.
So the Eagles win this game with their defense. And, I don't care how close the game is, it's a win.
Oh, yeah.
But like I said, those factors are going to go into this game for CMA. McColgan's going to do what McColgan does at quarterback. Now can everybody else do their job on the other side of the football too? And they got the studs. They got the studs. It's just got to be executed. And like I said, that's how this game is going to be decided between the ears for the Eagles.
And before we move on, I should mention, we didn't mention this, the Tibby Valley at LaVille game. We will have live updates during our broadcast from Doug Cassura.
Uncle Doug.
Yeah, giving us updates. Last week he gave us updates from the Jimtown Glen game. So just for all our listeners, we will have the Lancer game periodically updated on Max 98.3.
We'll get an update at halftime and at the end of the contest. So,
and then speaking of road trips, Triton has another road trip. Their second consecutive week they hit the road. This time it's at 2-1 Winnemac, who's coming off an 8-point win against home win against Culver Community. Triton last week had little problems at South Central with a 48-12 win. And
boy, did they run the football.
Oh, yeah. And the Trojans are now 3-1. The only loss is, of course, at Bremen, a game we did. But Tony's exactly right. I mean, Overmeyer was phenomenal. 10 rushes, 222 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then on defense, he had a pick, too. And the Prater kid had a pair of touchdowns and 65 yards rushing. And
see, that's the every Friday night.
Yeah, that 1-2 punch.
That's a great 1-2 punch.
When you're getting that, and you don't, I don't want to say you don't need Workman, because he does, of course, offense and defense. He's so valuable. But it takes a lot of heat off of him because teams are paying so much attention to him.
Well, there's that old adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right, yeah.
That's Triton's running game right now.
And we thought, leaving that Bremen game when the Trojans lost, we thought, okay, watch Triton sort of get on a mini roll here. And that's what they certainly did. I should mention, too, the senior Limler had 6 tackles in that game a week ago. So he was good as well. So we'll see if Triton can keep rolling against Winnemac. And then on our sister station, WKVI, their game of the week will be number 1 North Judson, of course undefeated, at 1-3 Culver Community. Culver Community, like we said last week, they lost 22-14 at Winnemac. Tall order, to say the least, for Austin Faust Club.
What do you got to lose in this one if you're Culver?
Yeah. Let's go out and play, guys, right?
Go out and give it up. Give every ounce of energy you got on every play is what it's going to take to try to beat a North Judson team. Many have tried, many have failed. But once Culver gets by North Judson with their particular schedule.
You mean North Judson gets by Culver? I got you.
Culver, I should say. Once they get by North Judson, they got Caston, Pioneer, North Miami, South Central. The schedule tips to their favor. At least that's my opinion. I like what the coaching staff is doing right now with this program. And yes, Culver has lost 3 in a row. West Central is well improved. Triton, well, did we say more? And then we've got the Winnemac one was probably one if again, the Cavaliers don't make key mistakes in that game, they get a chance to get out with a road win, but it didn't happen. So you got that now compounded with North Judson. The good news is it's a home game so for the Cavaliers, so that's going to help a little bit. But, boy, you better figure out how to be the most physical you could be tonight, because that's what it's going to take to slow down this North Judson offense. I'm picking North Judson to run the slate. I just am.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's.
I don't know anybody's going to be able to
come
slow
close
them down.
even.
Triton will be a close one. Triton would be is the closest one in my opinion, but even then, you've got to do a lot of things right at key moments, short yardage situations, short yardage stops by the Culver's defense is absolutely crucial. They've got to figure out a way to stop the 2nd and 3s because North Judson is one of the best in states right now in the short yardage situations. You just got to tell yourself, listen, I don't care what the outcome is. You're getting 1,000% out of me. So let's go helmet to helmet. You never know. This game can be very humbling when you least expect it. And that's what the Cavaliers got to come out thinking. And listen, McEwen boys, they're good athletes. They're going to make some plays. And don't think for 1 second that the entire coaching staff this week wasn't putting their nose in the computer screen trying to pick out weaknesses of North Jetson. Because you got to. And then now it's just about execution. And like I said, Culver's got nothing to lose here.
Yeah, and then we'll mention our Plymouth game of the week that Rusty Nixon and Joe McKee will have. The Rockies come home, and they come home, of course, after a big win, a 4-touchdown win at Goshen to win their first conference game of the season. And they're still in conference tonight as they host winless Wawasee, a Wawasee team that, boy, they would like to forget the way 2024 has gone. Been outscored 204-26, Tony. So
that's including a shutout in season 1 by Tippy Valley.
Yeah, Plymouth's got it going. I mean, they're 500. A chance tonight to get over 500 and win their second conference game. It's been a long time since we've been able to say that. And Finn Hollum was great, the junior running back for the Rockies last week, 136 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Ramirez, when he didn't have the best night passing the football, but as we've seen throughout his career, he'll beat you running the football, and that's exactly what he did. He had 191 all-purpose yards, ran for 119 and a touchdown. And, by the way, on defense, Brady Coffin had his per usual 13 tackle effort. That kid, we've talked about him on our show in the past, and he's just a wrecking ball. And the stats he's putting up this year are pretty impressive, to say the least. So, Plymouth football, again, we talked about going in this season, taking that next step in the evolution of building the program, and so far so good, I think, for the Rockies.
Okay, back to Estrada. It's Estrada, right? Xander. There you go. I'm sorry, Xander. Xander has all the tools. If you listen to Saturday morning's coach's show when Rusty's interviewing Coach Hanley, both of them brag about the ability Xander has. But sometimes in key points in the game, for example, when he needs to tuck and run and not try to stretch out a play to get the ball downfield by throwing, he'll do that. The decision making has got to continue to get better for him, to give him better opportunity to make the decision making easier. Again, I go back to the example of tucking and running versus trying to stretch a play out and throw a ball. If he can get better tonight, and I really feel tonight's a big game for him, I think it's huge because the following games include Warsaw, Northwood, Mishawaka, and Concord. That is a meat-grinding finish to a season.
Gauntlet.
Yep. You cannot afford to have indecision, especially when you're in the middle of a play. And tonight needs to be a blowout for the Rockies, not just for confidence sake, but to send a little message saying, hey, Warsaw, we're coming, and we're not your former opponent that you've played the last handful of years. I know Warsaw knows that. Mark Curtis isn't stupid. He pays attention. But for the Rockies themselves, tonight has got to be one of those almost flawless games to not only assure the win, but to assure the fact and send a message to every other NLC team that, yeah, we have improved. And you hate to put that kind of pressure on a game that really should be a big win here for the Rockies on homecoming night. But the approach has got to be, we've got to shore up everything. Because it is going to be unforgiving the next 4 weeks.
Yeah, the next month after tonight, you can. And
I'm telling you,
you better cut down your mistakes in every facet if you want to be in those games.
There might be one upset that the Rockies can pull off from Warsaw down to Concord at the end of the season. There might be one upset, but to me, it's going to be based on the momentum you got, how the confidence you're playing with. Is everybody doing their job? You know, all those things have to come together.
Well, they should
tonight.
like you said, this should be a lopsided game. They should have a lot of confidence going to Warsaw next week.
But it's different if you should win this game by 20 and don't have a flawless game compared to having a flawless game.
Yeah, you don't
see
want
what
a
I'm saying?
sloppy,
You
penalties,
can't afford
turnovers.
to be sloppy right now.
Right.
Start creating poor habits. You've got to be on your game tonight. And if it sends a 40-0 statement, so be it. The fact of the matter is, you have officially made the statement that we are now better, and we're coming in to your place or facing you here at the rock pile with a total different mentality. That's what I'm looking for the rest of the season for this Rocky football program. I think they're getting it. I do. You know, again, when you can beat a Goshen on the road, yeah, Goshen's down, but it's a road game. Your first road game that you played, by the way. You know, that tells me that confidence or that concentration level has been jacked up. And we all know that's important. So I really think the Rockies should win this one handily, but they really need to win it almost in a flawless fashion. The dumb penalties, like being offside off a snap of the ball, or lining up offside, or holding penalties that end up sending you back not 10 but 20 yards because you've done it back-to-back times. That stuff has to stop. It just does. If the Rockies are going to get a chance to do some damage and pick up one, maybe two surprise wins, and if they do that, look out. That sends a message to the NLC, and I will tell you, that also tells everybody else who's in that sectional with Knox, or not with Knox, but with Plymouth, we got to pay attention to these guys. So I think tonight's game has a lot more repercussion than a lot of people think in upset win. Or not an upset win, but a dominating win.
Well, and our another team looking for a bounce back win is John Glenn. We talked about their loss last week at home to Jimtown. It's our max game of the week. Our pregame will start at 6:30 with kickoff at 7:30, and it's a Knox team that there's no doubt so far the Redskins, they haven't been happy, at least with where their record is. They did bounce back from a really disheartening loss at Culver Academy the week prior by recovering and beating Tippy Valley in convincing fashion 26-3 at home last week. And once again, what more can we say about Miles McLaughlin? The kid is flat out amazing. He has 77 touchdowns in his career, and everybody knows when you're playing Knox, somehow, I don't even want to say you have to stop him. You have to contain him, but few have been able to do just that. I mean, CMA certainly didn't. It was just CMA was able to outscore Knox, and they got the ball last for all practical purposes. I mean, the ball with enough time to do something because, of course, Knox had the ball in the waning seconds. But tall order for the Falcons tonight against a Knox team, like you've said, and you've been to see them practice, really seems to have found their groove and is playing like a team on a mission again.
So let's start with John Glenn. They're going to go in shorthanded. We'll talk about that more at the pregame show. Unfortunately, it's a player that's going to be out of the lineup and a key player, and for the rest of the season too. And so, it's disheartening. But again, we'll talk more about that. So there's issue number one. Issue number two is trying to stop the run game of Knox. And three, I'm keep using this word flawless, but it's the only one that's coming to my mind now that since I'm getting older. They got to play. They got to execute offensively. They can't afford drop passes. They can't afford to be lining up offside or just lining or getting called offside. It's got to be a really solid performance by Glenn tonight. But if they do that, watching practice this past week, twice, by the way, John Glenn's going to make a game out of this. They have the size. They have speed in key positions. And again, it's just got to be almost a picture-perfect performance because the running game of Knox will be in full force, and you know they're going to score. You don't know how many times, you don't know how many times you're able to stop them, but you know the possibility is there. So your defense is going to get tested tonight if you're the Falcons. You're going to see how good you are for the Falcons. I like their linebackers, by the way. They're active. Their front line, it's a sizable line. Glenn's
Eli Beanie is a heat-seeking missile. He's a tackling machine.
So good this week in practice. Looks so good. But, there was several others that were pretty impressive for him. Here's what benefits Glenn. Knox will throw, but probably maybe 2%, 2 to 3% in tonight's game, as they've done in all others. It's not their bread and butter. Running the football is Knox's bread and butter. And I got to meet Miles McLaughlin this week, and just like his dad, probably two of the most humbling guys you ever met. I still call his dad a kid from calling his name a few times in his career. Miles is so humble, and he used the term he's blessed that with everything that's happening. And Miles is getting what he deserves. Every accolade, because he does so many things that you just don't see outside of him running the football. He blocks. He's a linebacker. He gets his nose in on things. He just plays hard. That's it. That's why McLaughlin is so successful. It's like his dad. They played hard. The X factor that is going to get John Glenn and get every other opponent from LaVille, Jimtown, Bremen, and Bowman Academy down is Jake Conroy. Now, he's 500. He's a little under, 495 or something like that away from hitting 1,000 yards himself. McLaughlin just needs 231 to reach 1,000 tonight. Those two, as we saw in that CMA game, complement each other so well, you can't help but get caught in just watching them. Now, for them to be successful, that means their offensive line has to be doing their job. Well, there's only been one game where it was a struggle, and that was season 1 against North Judson. From that point on, that offensive line, Coach Radke has had those boys, in their sleep understanding what first steps need to be taken on this play, what first step needs to be taken on the next play, and so on and so on and so forth, to where they just look like they're in unison off the snap of the ball. And that allows the timing of a Conroy, of a McLaughlin. Kane is probably one of their better receivers, but I think he's only had maybe 1 or 2 thrown. There's 3 receivers that have had 3 passes caught. 3. The rest have been all runs. So what does that tell you? That tells you that you got a genius head coach that puts his best players in positions to execute plays. And then he's got 2 very skilled runners that are so good at seeing the field off their first step. How many times did we say in that CMA game, Conroy has got you can just see him first gear, second gear, and by the time he's about ready to make contact with somebody, he's in a 3rd gear and still able to spin out of it or take an angle that gets your defender standing there with his pants dropped, because Conroy is that good of an athlete. And he kind of gets overlooked because of Miles' success. But, man, in practice, they looked like the best buds. They did training over the summer together. And like I said, this is what makes Knox so solid.
And watch out for the Knox defense. They held a Tippy Valley team last week to
took the words
just
out of my
3
mouth.
points.
That's right. You took the words out of my mouth.
A good Tippy team.
Now, and they did the same to Pioneer when they only give up 6.
Yep.
And that was at Pioneer, by the way. No, it was home. It was home to Pioneer. But still, Pioneer's a good team. So, we got 2 teams that got a lot of potential to do some damage against one another. It's going to be the Glen offense versus the Knox defense. Well, I should say the Glen passing game more specifically versus the Knox defense. And it's going to be Knox's run game against John Glenn's run defense. So that's what you got to look forward to, I think, at, Community Field tonight. And again, we'll be there starting at 6:30 with a pregame show. All right, take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk some more sports back after this. Welcome back to Sports Talk on the Max. We're also live with our stream on our Max 98.3 exclamation point, our stream video on YouTube. It's our own YouTube channel. And again, that's Max 98.3 stream exclamation point if you want to view this live. All right, Duke, where are we going next?
Yeah, college football, believe it or not, listeners, we're entering our 4th week of college gridiron action, and boy, there's a really good slate of games, a handful of games featuring top 25 teams squaring off with one another. So some of those games, I'll just rattle them off here. Maybe the biggest of the day, number 6 Tennessee, which, by the way, the Vols have played this year. They may be more than a national championship contender. They might be a favorite to win it all, but they travel to Soonerland. They'll play the number 15 Oklahoma Sooners. Should be a dynamite game. Number 12 Utah is at number 14 Oklahoma State. A lot of interest in Big Ten country with this one. Number 11 USC travels to Ann Arbor to face number 18 Michigan, who the last 2 weeks the Wolverines have not exactly set the world on fire. Obviously, they lost at home to a really good Texas Longhorn team, but then they went out of conference last week when we're less than impressive, to say the least. Number 24 Illinois goes to number 22 Nebraska, and so there's your handful of top 25 showdown squaring off. And, of course, number 17 Notre Dame got very, very, very healthy a week ago in what I'll call a scrimmage against Purdue, because I don't even know if it was a glorified scrimmage. It was the worst game I've ever seen the Purdue Boilermakers play on a football field. And, Notre Dame pounded them 66-7. And, I had a couple people ask me, about running up the score. Forget that. Marcus Freeman didn't run the score.
That can be helped.
It was Purdue's fault.
No, it was.
When you're not going to tackle and you're not going to cover people, there was not, other than running out of bounds and taking a knee, Notre Dame could not help but run up the score. Yeah. I mean, Freeman played everybody on his travel roster. Heck, I think Riley Leonard didn't even play in the second half. He was playing. Well, they were a couple of injuries they suffered, Notre Dame, on their offensive line. I think they were down 4 offensive linemen in the second quarter, and it didn't matter. They played second, third string O linemen, and they still dominated the line of scrimmage. So, yeah, I left Ross-Ade Stadium, I might say the earliest I've ever left that stadium, at halftime, and I thought, okay, that's the Irish team we expected against Northern Illinois, and but make no mistake, that's no diss on Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois is a very good football team with a very good offensive line and very good head coach.
But they came in and faced a team that wasn't ready
to play. Yep.
That's exactly what happened down in West Lafayette. I watched Purdue come out of the tunnel, Tiller Tunnel, and there was only one guy jumping up and down.
Yeah, which is just mind-boggling. How you cannot be ready
for Notre Dame.
For Notre Dame, exactly right.
How do you?
I don't care if you haven't won a game all year.
Exactly.
You watch Miami of Ohio Notre Dame on tomorrow. They haven't won a game.
I want to apologize for every Notre Dame fan that you even had to come down, spend your gas, pay for expensive concession stand food to watch that game.
Yeah, because it wasn't even a game.
That would no. What that was. I don't even know what it was. I said, as soon as they came out of the tunnel. This does not look
And you
good.
really said, after Notre Dame's, 5-play, 75-yard scoring drive and the first time they touched the ball? When
I said something else that I can't
When it was
repeat.
very apparent that Purdue linebackers had absolutely no speed, especially sideline to sideline. And
no speed. I mean, the edge speed is not...
Looked like me out there running at 58, Tony.
But, I mean, that was god-awful. And, I'm going to tell you, Walter, I told you that, I think he couldn't be any more happy to get Monday around.
That they got out of Dodge this week.
Because there's been other major stories that have happened to keep the light off
And they
them.
also left a day early Thursday. Yesterday they left for Oregon to get ready for that game, and you hate to say it's a huge game 3 games into the year, but I think we're going to have a clear indication where this program's headed tomorrow night.
I don't know how you can compensate for the lack of edge speed.
Yeah.
I don't
care who your coach is.
Yeah, I mean, and same on the defensive side.
Right. Oh, it's everywhere. Yeah.
It's everywhere. It's both on offense and defense. And somebody, it's got to take the 11 that's on the field, but that was the worst drubbing in Purdue history, I think.
Yeah, most points Purdue's ever given up in a football game. And folks, as you know, Purdue and a lot of these programs around here, they've been playing football for a long, long, long time, like more than a century.
Yeah. Here's the deal. I don't know if you can salvage a season after something like that, because everything got exposed. Everything. But most importantly, the mentality. I mean, that's bruised. That didn't get bruised. That got cut open.
And to be a power 4 or 5 football player and not compete against a Notre Dame is inexcusable.
Completely. So I don't know if the Boilers are going to be able to recover. Here's the deal. The schedule they have isn't going to let them.
Oh, it's not forgiving.
It's not going to let them recover unless they do a special some kind of psych job on themselves intervention, call it whatever you need to call it, to come out with the utmost fire to prove your worth on that team. Because if I'm a coach, I don't know who I'm starting other than Card.
And think about this, and we'll talk about this. A lot's been made in Notre Dame's schedule. And again, you can only play who's on your schedule. You don't know how teams, Notre Dame goes into their schedule, and they thought Florida State would be ranked. Obviously, Florida State hasn't won a football game. So it's not their fault they're 0-3, and that becomes one less opportunity to play a top 25 team. But look at Purdue. Now, there aren't any more Indiana States left on the schedule.
None.
You've got Oregon State.
0.
Now, keep in mind, Oregon State is a definitely rebuilding program. They lost their coach, their quarterback, their star running back, tons of players to the transfer portal because, of course, their coach took another job. So, but anytime you go on the road in the West Coast, it's a wild card. So, good luck, Purdue. But coming back. Then Purdue will play on homecoming next Saturday, a nationally ranked Nebraska team. And then, after that, they go to Wisconsin, who they haven't been beaten Wisconsin since I think air travel was invented. Then after that is nationally ranked Illinois on the road. Now, I know Illinois, Nebraska, whoever loses that game might be knocked out of the top 25. Who cares? It's still a quality opponent. And then what really strikes the fear of God in me, the only home game in October for Purdue is against the Oregon Ducks on a Friday night on national TV. I mean, and you think Notre Dame was fast? Again, Oregon's not as good as they were a year ago, but they have talent and speed to burn. And I don't see any way Purdue's within 6 touchdowns of the Oregon Ducks. And that's my point. In today's day and age of college landscape, transfer portal, NIL, it's not like the days of old where you give coaches 4 and 5 years. You can't afford to. Because, again, we're in knee-jerk reaction, instant news, everything, instant gratification, especially when it comes to sports. And fans that are dishing out a lot of money. The Tony Rosses and I, aren't the biggest of donors, but we do buy season tickets. And it's not cheap to use your fuel and all that and buy concession stands. You want some payback for your investment regardless of the level of investment. And you're in the, entertainment industry, whether you like it or not. And I heard so many fans around me, season ticket holders at Purdue, that were questioning, and we buy season tickets. Why? And once you start having to plant those seeds, you're in deep, deep trouble as a football program and an athletic department, because all of our listeners know football butters the bread for all your other programs. And again, I know the Big Ten is rich beyond rich because of the TV rights deal. Each school get 80 to 100 million per year per school. But again,
the Big Ten never had to worry about us this year. We sold out.
Right.
Every game sold out.
I give Purdue's fans are all American level.
Yeah.
I mean, you got behind a new coach last year. Attendance was great. This year, even better, coming off a 4-8 season. And you have a season ticket sellout, a student season ticket sellout. Now, there's single game available, but my point is never before has Purdue seen support like that. I mean, Joe Tiller days, they were winning, but when they played like an Indiana State, they had 50-ish thousand in the stands. This year, they play Indiana State coming off a 4-8 season, and they have 61,000 in the stands. I don't know many programs that would be the case if you gave them the same scenario as the season. But Tony and I both know, and a lot of Purdue fans out there know, I don't know what game you win the rest of the year. And I hate to be Debbie Downer, but if this team goes 1-11 or 2-10, I just don't know, because I know what's going to happen when renewal time comes for season tickets. It's not going to be good. And I vividly remember the days of 30,000 in Ross-Ade Stadium. And they were the laughing stock of the Big Ten.
Yep.
And everybody knew it. And then, Jeff Brom resurrected that program. But keep in mind, in the history of Purdue football, they have never had back-to-back winning coaches, ever. They've never followed a winning coach with another winning coach right away. And I like Ryan Walters, but the proof's in the pudding.
My observation is he tends to be a player's coach.
Yep.
And that's no good. Because when that happens, sometimes you get a little lax on little things like, you got a player at practice that's just dropping catches right and left, and there's no repercussion or anything said by a coach because they're afraid to say something. There's no accountability. In other words, I didn't see any accountability in that game at all against Notre Dame. None, not one iota. And I watch the sidelines almost as much as I watch the game itself, because you get to see that the TV doesn't bring. And a lot of laughing, a lot of what looked like non in the game stuff was happening along that sideline. Coaches are doing their job.
And again, at Purdue, face reality. Notre Dame was superior at every position, talent-wise.
Yeah.
Always will be, always have been. But Purdue, whether it's now the tide's changed in basketball, but that's why people love Gene Cady so much. He didn't always get the most talent, but by God, his teams played hard. And they usually outcompeted their opponent. And by that, they put themselves in position to win and win big. And Purdue football, if they don't play hard, they're done. Dead in the water, forget it. Because almost every team on their schedule has a more talented roster than they do. And like Tony said, if they have guys goofing off, that is just a huge red flag to me and surrender. And by the way, it doesn't help that Indiana University is off to a 3-0 start and seems to have found a dynamite coach in Signetti.
I love their coach.
And
there's accountability.
Right.
There's accountability in everything his players are doing.
Yep. And they have a great chance to be 4-0.
It can be done. You don't always have to. We don't always have to pamper these NIL guys or anybody else. You're coming to Indiana because you want to win. Come hell or high water. You will not be at Indiana if you want to be a selfish person. That's a good coach Indiana's got.
Well, and he head coach, of course, of James Madison. James Madison, what'd they lose? One game last year? And he brought 20 of his players from James Madison, so those guys know how to win. The other thing I'll say about Purdue is, and again, I know you can armchair quarterback it to death. We've seen this outfit now, 14 games at Purdue. They've won 5. But he was a defensive coordinator. It begs the question, you're a Power 5 school, and you're hiring an assistant coach to be the head coach.
When's the last time we had an offensive coach?
Yeah, that's the other thing. Well, Braum was an offensive guy.
Yeah.
That's the other. Tony brings up a great point because guess what? Purdue's never had a successful defensive guy as their head coach. Now, Leon Burtnett took over for Jim Young. Leon was defensive coordinator for Jim Young, and he did have a winning season in '84. But after that, it was all downhill. And again, in my opinion, you have to have an offensive head coach at Purdue, and you better have a very unique offense that plays a different brand of football. I mean, and IU, all you have to do is they're going to be 4-0 after tomorrow when they beat Charlotte. And, oh, by the way, they have 8 home games, and they only have, I believe it's 2 teams that are ranked, Michigan and Ohio State. Both those come in November, and there is good reason. There's some people that believe the Hoosiers' chances of making the 12-team college football playoff, and don't laugh at me, are 25% right now as we sit. I mean, those are pretty good chances. Mm-hmm. And you look at their remaining schedule, I'll say it right now, they're going to drill Purdue in the bucket game in Bloomington. I don't think Purdue has any chance. That quarterback that IU has, I'm more than impressed. Transfer from Ohio, the Rourke kid, he had 4 touchdowns, threw for 300 yards last week. I mean, he's a senior quarterback. Signetti knew exactly who he wanted. Signetti can also coach defense as his assistant coaches, and they've shown it. And I know, critics might say, well, they haven't played anybody, but what's going on in Bloomington, you better take notice because the momentum's starting to build in Bloomington.
Okay, Getting close to wrapping up the show. Back to talk more after this. All right, here to wrap it up for our Sports Talk on the Max. Let's get a couple topics in real quick before we got to go.
Yeah, of course, real quick on the NFL, the Bears. It's only game 3, but it's a huge one for both the Bears and the Indianapolis Colts on Sunday. Bears will play in Lucas Oil Stadium. Bears 1-1, Colts 0-2. A lot of answers need to be given here as these two teams are searching for answers. I think it's fair to say the Bears' O-line was just atrocious against the Texans, and head coach Eberflus's seat's getting very, very hot.
Well, it should. I mean, that was just an awful offensive display. But how are your twos? Are they any better? Apparently not, because the ones we put out there were number ones.
Yeah.
So, now you got to be creative as a coaching staff.
Well, they're going to
that's bad, because that's not what Williams came on board to be part of. But Caleb's going to have to learn, or going to have to buy in the run game. But it's hard to buy into something that, well, when you don't have an offensive line, how the hell do you run?
Well, especially all offseason, all you heard about was this great wide receiving core, and you can't even get him the ball because he doesn't have enough time to throw.
No,
he was pressured 44 dropbacks against the Texans. Williams was pressured 36 times. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah,
Williams will be on the IR before you can spell IR.
And if I'm Badgett, I'm thinking, God, do I fake an injury so I don't get killed?
Yeah. And the only saving grace this week against the Colts are one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. So we're going to find out Sunday whether the Bears can run the football at all. And, oh, by the way, they're one of the worst quarterback pressure teams. Only have 4 pressures this year. 3 of them are by Buckner, their fine D lineman, and he's out with an ankle injury. So God help them. If they can't do it this week, Tony, good luck. And should mention Ohtani, the Dodgers player. What an unbelievable performance last night. 6 for 6, 10 RBI, 3 homers in one game against Florida. He has over 50 home runs and 50 steals. First time in Major League Baseball history.
Coming off injury.
Yeah, a rebuilt elbow.
A rebuild, yeah. That's just unheard of. That stuff right there is unheard of.
I mean, he's arguably the greatest player you and I will have ever seen in our lifetime.
Very well.
Especially when you consider he can pitch. And then the Caitlin the Great, I'll call her, Caitlin Clark. I mean, what she's done to the WNBA and the Indiana Fever. Last night, they moved their game against Washington, the regular season finale, into the Washington Wizards NBA facility. Set a WNBA record for attendance over 20,000. I mean, she holds like every rookie record. She's going to be all WNBA. She's going to be Rookie of the Year. And, oh, by the way, the WNBA playoffs start for the Fever on Sunday. They play Connecticut out there. And it's just best of 3. The first 2 games are at Connecticut. So, of course, they're hoping to get a split and at least play the third and deciding game back in Indy.
I'm a little torn. I know Stephanie White from my Purdue days and interviewing her, getting to know her. Boy, she's just so basketball savvy. It's crazy.
And brought Purdue a national championship in basketball.
Brought Purdue national championship.
Yep.
I hate going against her, but it's the fever. And CC is just sometimes she has spurts in her game, and people wait with anticipation when she goes cold and then she hits her first shot. Next thing you know, she's back on track. Everybody gets excited. And then she'll miss a shot, miss a couple shots, miss a third shot. She'll make a bad pass, but when she gets that next pass in, it's a layup. Or then when she decides from anywhere on the freaking court to hit a three, she'll hit that three at the time you need to hit the three. So to me, I think she's about there, if not already there. But boy, by saying that, I mean, we're saying that she's like the Larry Bird of
I'm telling you,
WNBA.
Caitlin the Great.
You know, she's still got some things she's got to work on. I don't like her reactions when things don't go her way. But let me tell you, I'll tell you what I'm most impressed with is how many times she's been beaten up by her opponents. And we found in the women's basketball league that there is a lot of revenge,
jealousy, too.
Jealousy.
Yep. It's
Until
been
the
her
league,
against the world in that league.
And the NBA finally has done something about it. They finally have seen it.
And what I love, Tony, is her will to win has rubbed off on her players.
I agree.
And you're right.
I agree.
And maybe it'll come with age. I just think she hates to lose so much that sometimes her sportsmanship wavers here and there. And but I also, you also don't want to take that away.
No,
because she's so ultra about winning.
Yeah, you got to keep that. Now I don't know if the head coach is going to be around next year.
And how about, have you ever seen so many men wear Caitlin Clark jerseys? I never thought I'd see the day where I'd see men wearing Caitlin Clark or women WNBA jerseys.
Halliburton's got a front row seat at every home game.
And she's like that. Those you talk about as good as advertised. There are very few professional rookies that I can ever think of in my lifetime that have been as good as advertised. Yeah. Like she has, let alone totally change the complexion of the WNBA.
Well, she is something special, that is for sure. All right, we got to get out of here. That's it for Sports Talk on the Max. Let's do it again next Friday at noon, right here on Max 98.3. Again tonight, our football schedule will look like this. Rusty will be here at the Rock Pile for the homecoming game against Wawasee. You can catch that on max983.net. That's our webpage. And then go to sports. Click Rusty's game and then listen live, and there you go. You will catch Rusty and Joe McKee for tonight's Rockies action. We'll have on the radio side our game of the week presented by A&M Home Services, and it'll be the John Glenn Falcons and the Knox Redskins live from Community Field, and our pregame will start at 6:30 Eastern time for that, and will lead to a 7:30 kickoff. I think I got everything else. K99.3, by the way, is going to be doing the Culver North Judson game. And so you can catch Mitch Columbi and his fantastic sports crew with the broadcast there. I think that's going to start around 6 or 6:30. I'm not quite sure on the Eastern time zone on that. So either way, tune in. And to K99, if you want to listen to the Cavaliers and the Blue Jays go toe-to-toe. And right down the dial will be us with John Glenn and Knox. Folks, have yourself a wonderful day.